A long time ago, when I had longer, silkier, and more beautiful hair, I did this video. In this video, I compared a G923 and a direct drive. And my conclusions were a G923 is as fast as a direct drive. And I also say, before it was cool to say it, that if you really want to become faster, spin it on pedals. In that case, at that time, was spin it on load cell pedals. As Type kept marching to the inevitable end of the universe, I also kept saying this: diminishing returns in sim racing hit rather quick. So that's basically the topic of today's video. Let's compare a bunch of pedals from cheaper to more expensive and see where the diminishing returns in sim racing actually hit. So we're gonna use 4 pedal sets: the Fanatec CSL Elite V2, the Mazda CRP2, my personal favorites and the one that I use in my sim rig, the MSim Talentos, and then also an active pedal set, the Mazda M Booster. And today's video was made much easier by using today's sponsor, Coach Dave Academy Delta. This tool will record all of your telemetry, and you can compare your telemetry with reference lab made by Pro Esports drivers. You'll have access to setups, which I used for this video, mainly a Yuri Kazdorp 1. This tool also has some AI tips. It will also have a leaderboard that they added on the latest update. And you have telemetry and setups from games like Le Mans Ultimate, iRacing, Assetto Corsa Competizione, Assetto Corsa, and even Gran Turismo. So this will be the video's setup for today. We're gonna have these 4 pedals going battle side by side, always in the same conditions using iRacing at Daytona, because I had a really bad weekend Daytona, but at least I know the track and it feels natural to me. I start with the MSim Talento pedals because they were already here and they would have a natural advantage if I put it at the ends. Then I would move to the M Booster pedals and then to the CRP2s and then to the CSL Elite V2s to see if we can put some differences from muscular memory, if it can be derived through price or just mechanical features or something like that. I think this would be the best way to do it. We're gonna do 10 laps and we're gonna check best times, optimal times, and all of that stuff. I understand in order for this video to be more meaningful, you would need a much bigger sample size, probably 10, 20 people doing this back to back in many different directions, but because that isn't available and ain't nobody got time for that, the conclusions can't be as minute, but we can take a broader stroke out of the conclusions, and they are so interesting. Also, I want to give a shout out not for today's sponsor but to Simatic, because I'm using their sim rig and changing the pedals, which normally would be a pain in the butt. It was absolutely a breeze. Takes me like 5 minutes to change in between pedal sets instead of taking me 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. In some cases that was the case with other sim rigs that I've used in the past. These are the sessions that I've recorded using Delta. It made the bookkeeping much easier, and the information there is actually quite interesting. I've done a few others offline to make sure that the pedals were working correctly, and I had everything set up because setting up the pedals is really, really important. And then you pick up that information and put it on a table, and looking at the table, it becomes funnier the more you look at it. And also, when you start looking at other circumstances that I've also recorded, becomes even funnier, because the main takeaway of this video, and we do have to put some nuance in here, you know, the sample size is very small, is that in reality there isn't much difference between the top and bottom pedal set in terms of price. Before looking at the data, and the data is funny, there's a reason why I took 2 averages, the regular average and the average with plus and minus. The average with the removed top and bottom lap is important-ish. For me, the regular average is more important, but it's important-ish to make sure that you have a more homogeneous type of sample. However, for racing, that doesn't really work. You want really the real average, because you're going to have bad lap times. You're going to have very good lap times as well, you know, one that is 1 in a million. You're going to have that, and it's really important to see if you're going to be fast or not. So looking at the data again, from the perspective of my pedal set, the MSim Talentos, it has the best average time, and it also has the best optimal time. That means that Muscle memory is really important, and if you are comfortable with your muscle memory, you're gonna always try to be the best you can be. You want to be the very best like no one ever was, and that makes you comfortable. However, when you start looking at the data, you see that in other things, they're actually kind of middle of the road. So let's go to the M Booster. The M Booster is the most expensive out of the bunch by 100, but it's still basically double the price of the Monster CRPs and triple the price, or four times the price as the CSL Elite V2s. It has the worst averages. However, it is the most consistent. With the standard deviation of the average, regular average, it's the most consistent within, a third of a tenth, 300ths. Really not that important, which is basically the case on everything that we see here, and also the best standard deviation when you go to remove the top and bottom, because I had two distinct lap times over here, so it became, kind of like clockwork. But, optimal times, it was the second best, even though it was the slowest on average, so that doesn't mean anything, so we need to go to the Mazda CRP2s. The Mazda CRP2s have the third fastest lap. It has the third average lap. It has the third, or the second average plus and minus. It has one of the worst deviations for the regular, average, and it also is the worst in terms of optimal time. But you would say with this, well, then this is the worst pedal set then. Actually not, because you're within a fart of everything else. Then you go to the Fanatec CSL V2s. They're the cheapest, they're the fastest, they're the one with the second best average. They're kind of consistent. In reality, they're the second worst consistency with the regular average, but the second best consistency when you remove the top and bottom. And it's the third worst when you look at the optimal, even though it had the best time. But here's the thing, and if you go to one of the practice sessions of this, you'll figure out that I actually got my best time of all of it with the Fanatec CSL V2s, to the point it gave me a top 5%, the 15th position, very, very close to, within a tenth of a second, really, to Coach Dave Pro Drivers. Of course, I'm not sure what they were using over here for their lap times, but it tells you that you can be really, really fast with a very entry-level pedal set. So that really means, if you want to really try to get some sort of granular information out of this, is that the Fanatec CSL Elite V2s are the best bang for your buck out of the bunch that we've seen here. And in reality, you can look at it like that, but there are more things that you can look in a pedal set. Once again, trying to get granular conclusions out of this is impossible, because I'm only one person and we need 10, 20, 30 people to do this test over and over again, and only then you can have a look. Even though one of the conclusions is, and it should be very, very obvious, when I talked about on the wheels that you can be as fast with the G923 as with the direct drive, and that is true. Probably the consistency could be checked out as well, is that the pedal set is really, really important. And the second point is something that I've been talking about for years, to make sure that you avoid spending money with no necessity, is that the diminishing returns in sim racing, they hit rather early. And I believe that they will hit even earlier than the 299 that we see on a Fanatec CSL Elite V2s. It's likely that the pedal set, like the Mazda CRPs, or the ones that I said from Nikon that I thought they were really, really good, the one that were in the bundle, it's likely, if I give enough time, like an hour, 2 hours, within those 2 hours, I can post times within a tenth of a second of my best laps, if not beat it, because I've done more laps. So that tells you that muscle memory and repeatability is more important than spending your money in something that is more expensive and probably better. In this case, better is relative. Secondly, and this is important for my class of people or YouTube reviewers, when they say within an hour or two, I'm able to match or beat my times. And looking at the data that I see here, this is very likely the truth. I haven't used the Fanatec CSL V2s at this level in about a couple of years, and I was able to beat my times putting just some effort into it, and I've even gotten, a top 15 on Coach Dave Delta out of it. Thirdly, this one is the most important, and it should be kind of obvious by now. spending time on a sim is so much more important than spending time looking for the next big thing. That means pedals, wheelbases, whatever. Of course, if you want to have more immersion, be at it. If you want to spend your money, be at it. But at least have it in your head that you're not going to buy more performance out of this. I hope you enjoyed this video and you find this interesting. Press like and subscribe and tell me in the comments what you think about this. Share this video with a friend that kills everybody in Monza T1.